Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Judy Lukoski. I'm with the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at UNC Charlotte, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today to a very special alumni panel. We're going to be presenting alumni from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and their topic today is I Never Dreamt I Would Be, their stated career when I was a student at UNC Charlotte. Our panelists today will talk about the path that they took after their time here at UNC Charlotte, some of them following the degree that they pursued, others following a very different path. This is part of our Niner Nation Gives 49 Hours of Giving event. We do encourage you to go online and give. You can go to ninernationgives.uncc.edu and make your gift. Hopefully to the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, there's several priorities that we're featuring as a part of the giving. You will meet some of our panelists shortly, and we will have some of our current students who will be interviewing them as well. Today, we will be hearing from Chadwick Boyd, who's the president owner of Chadwick Boyd Lifestyles. He's from the class of 1993 and had a Bachelor of Arts degree in English with minors in French and Public Relations. There's also Toni Kellner. She is an author and mystery writer. She's from the class of 1983, also an English major. And we also have Boris Blues Rogers. He's the Director of Creative Engagement for the Blumenthal Performing Arts Center here in Charlotte. He's from the class of 2007, and he pursued a Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications Studies. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Tanner Greaves, who's going to tell you about the rest of the panelists.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event, and thank you for joining us for today's panel. To introduce our three other panelists for today, we have Margaret Kocherga, who is a two-time alum of UNC Charlotte. She has her BS in chemistry that she got in 2016, and she received her PhD in nanoscale in 2020. We also have Grayson Dill, who is the Senior Vice President and Business Control Manager in Bank of America's Consumer and Small Business Anti-Money Laundering section. He's a class of 2011. He actually has a BA and BS degree in political science, economics, and mathematics. And then last but not least, we have Cameron French. Cameron is the Senior Vice President of SKDK, class of 2006, and he has a BS in political science. So we're really excited to hear from all our panelists today, and we are going to turn it over to Grayson today to answer some of our questions from our students. So thank you for joining us.
I work for Bank of America right now on a risk management function. And I work closely with Tanner and Judy on the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Alumni Council.
Okay. Toni.
Hi, I'm Toni Kellner. I was Toni Perry back in the day when I was at UNC. Whoops, am I muted? No, okay. At UNCC. I grew up in Charlotte. I have a degree in English from UNCC, and these days I'm a mystery writer, sometimes an urban fantasy writer, but I've been writing novels. My first one came out in 1993. So I've been at this a while, and my job, one of the things with my job responsibilities, best part of being a mystery writer, I'm only responsible for killing people.
Okay, that's going to be a hard one to follow. Chadwick?
Well, instead of killing people, I cook for people. So my name is Chadwick Boyd. I'm a graduate of UNC Charlotte in 1993. I had a very circuitous route through UNC Charlotte, and grateful for liberal arts and independent study to really allow me the flexibility to pursue many of my passions. I started in architecture, was there for a year and a half, and I thought I was going to be Mike Brady and be this wonderful architect. But now what I do is I own and run a food and lifestyle consumer brand marketing company. I also am a television host. You may see me on CNN, on Hallmark. I write for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and lots of food and lifestyle magazines that any of your family probably have in their homes right now. And it's all driven by my purpose and my mission, which is to change the world for good through food and words.
Thanks. We've got Blues.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Blues. I graduated 2006. I had to figure that out. from communications department, mass comm, journalism minor. Moved to Charlotte in '94 from South Carolina, so it wasn't a big move. But much like Chadwick, I thought I was going to be an architect and found out that I was terrible at everything an architect needs to be good at. So I switched up into the things that I love, and that's using words and basically talking to people and moving messages. So now I got a job in television. Was working for Vehicle Communications, and then I decided one day I'm just going to work for myself and do this poetry thing. Connected with NASCAR, which connected me with the NBA, which connected me with the NFL, which connected me with a ton of people who work in the industry, and a lot of years of just doing some really cool creative stuff. Eventually landed me working for Blumenthal Performing Arts, and now I'm the director of creative engagement. And I've been here since September. It's a very, very fun job, high paced. Being able to do a lot of creative things for my community and the creatives who live here. So it's been super fun. On top of all that, I'm a poet, a slam poet, and Charlotte is the 3-time national poetry slam champions of the world. So I always say, if Charlotte never wins another championship, just lean on us to say, hey, we got one championship team in town, and we'll take that. But so happy to be here. I really enjoyed my time at UNCC. I hate going back now because I see all the really cool stuff that y'all have, and I'm like, my God, I had to walk everywhere. But it's cool. I'm so glad to see the school growing and seeing so many diverse stories and voices that are coming through the system. So super, super happy to be here.
And Cameron?
Great, thanks. Cameron French, class of '06, have a bachelor's degree in political science. Originally transferred to UNC Charlotte from North Carolina A&T. Came to Charlotte with the intent of majoring in motorsports engineering because of my love of all things motorsports and automobiles, but quickly learned that my ability to compute math, among other things, did not match up to my passion and interest. So quickly made a decision to redirect to political science, where I've always had an interest in history and government, and have been able to take a degree from there, and I've had the opportunity to work for members of Congress, now 2 presidents, including the current. So just really appreciate everything that Charlotte has done and been helpful to set off a pretty short but fun career of the last 15 or so years, and I'm really happy to be with everybody today, and with so many great alumni and so many great colleagues as well.
Thanks. I know Margaret is our other panelist, and I think she's having some difficulty getting in and out of our Zoom call. So when she does get on, we'll have her introduce herself. But in the meantime, I'm going to throw it back to our students, and we'll start the question and answer session.
Hi, I would like to thank you all for being here. My name is Nate St. Cyr. I'm a senior Africana Studies major with a chemistry minor, and my hometown is also Charlotte. The first question I have for you guys is, if you had to do college all over again, what would you do differently? And would you choose UNC Charlotte again?
Okay, I'm just going to tell you guys to jump in.
I definitely choose UNCC again, and I would definitely go to class and read the books and the chapters that I was told to read. I'm realizing how much, when you're young, you're just like, I don't need this kind of guidance. I can do it on my own. And then later in life, you're like, wow, they were really telling me the right thing to do so I could graduate on time. Because I started and then I stopped. And when I went back as a more mature student, I was like, reading the chapters are easy. Oh, that stuff was on the test. Oh, these professors know what they're talking about. So much easier, but I would definitely go back. UNCC was great. It was located in a really cool space. The city is great. So I really enjoyed my time.
I'll jump in. So I was at UNC Charlotte at a time where there was a big division between where the campus of the college was and where Uptown Charlotte is. It's not like it wasn't then what it is today. I think the greatest thing that I appreciated about UNC Charlotte was not just the campus, but the relationship with the business community, and being out and taking advantage of all the things that Charlotte had beyond the campus, whether it was the Mint Museum or even just going into the different neighborhoods. That enriched my experience. I always talk about, since I'm in food, the very first time that I walked into the fresh market in Myers Park, I had never experienced anything like that. And it really actually was an activator for bringing my English degree, my PR degree, my architecture experience into what I do today. So I definitely would highly recommend that everybody orients themselves that UNC Charlotte is a campus. It's a much bigger campus when I was there, but Charlotte is a burgeoning city that has tremendous opportunity, and everyone should leverage that while they're there.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I would go back, and the reason is because where it is right now is so different from where it was in 79 to 83. Having shepherded my two daughters through their college search, and one's graduated now and one's still in college, it's so much where you feel at home, and where that one of my daughters calls it that click moment when you know this is the right college. I think I would like UNCC probably more now, just because, as Chadwick was saying, that there's so much linked with the city. University City was a pipe dream when I was there. This was, I remember, 1983. But there's so many more opportunities and so many ways to do things, because I think wherever you go to college, you should take advantage of where it is, what there is to do on campus in addition to your classes, and there's just so much more to choose from now. So I think I would like it better, but I'd have to visit with brand new eyes and see what I saw.
I would absolutely do it all over again. I would sign up tomorrow if I could. I think the biggest thing that I would probably do differently is just enjoy it a little bit more and try to be a little bit more patient. And you're so focused on trying to, graduate within a reasonable amount of time, whether that's 4 years or 5 years, you don't really fully recognize that, that time in your life is incredibly short, because the road ahead of you from, 22, 23 through the rest of your career is, 3, 4, and 5 times longer than that little experience you get, during that 4 or 5 year window when you're on campus, or if you pursue a graduate degree. So I think the hindsight version would be to just enjoy it that much more. Enjoy that last basketball game one more time. Enjoy that last trip to the SAC one more time, or that last walk across what used to be Belk Tower. Just enjoying all those moments just a little bit differently now, because you truly don't get to experience them in the same way. But without a doubt, I'd go back and do it all over again, and just loved it that much that I would easily sign up.
I think I might approach the answer a little from obliquely. I had the benefit of coming back to college as a post-baccalaureate student, so I did kind of get a chance to do it over, and the choice is obvious. I did do it over, and I think what I would say about that is a liberal arts education, a college of liberal arts and sciences, is a place where you can be very experimental. I studied history. I don't regret it. I think I use my history degree every day. I, as a history student a long time ago, would have never imagined getting a degree in mathematics. At that time, if you had asked me if I had studied mathematics, I would have said, no, I'm terrible at mathematics. I came back a couple of years later, and lo and behold, I ended up being a student of mathematics, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. And so there's something to be said about the breadth of opportunity in a liberal arts college. And there's something to be said about pushing yourself to experiment with different disciplines. Would I do it again? Well, I did.
Margaret, before we move on to the next question, you want to introduce yourself? And the question kind of was, would you do it again? Would you come to UNC Charlotte again?
Hello, everybody. Yeah, sure. So I finished my bachelor's degree. I was actually a transfer student coming to UNC Charlotte in my bachelor's in chemistry, Bachelor of Science, and graduated in 2016 with that. And then I took a chance to go to grad school, and it so happened that UNC Charlotte had accepted me, and I was kind of confined to proximity of Charlotte, so it worked out quite well for me. And then in the wonderful pandemic year, I finished my PhD in nanoscale science at UNC Charlotte. So people have been recalling, well, I wish I would have been able to do this or that. It hit extra hard because we hadn't had the luxury to be able to do some of the things that maybe we had missed out on earlier and just kind of had put them off to the side. Oh, we're going to have time. Everything's going to be fine. And just an extra reminder is when you have chances, go ahead and take them. You don't know when they're going to be taken away from you. So that was definitely a food for thought for everybody who would be coming in fresh, and hopefully they'll have a normal semester coming in with everything that has been happening. So definitely upsetting for a lot of students. But if I would do it again, yes, sure. Why not? Every path is unique and different. And all I can say that sometimes I wish I had a little bit more outside help and guidance. So going back to some of the feedback I heard, kind of building the community around you, that's really important, especially when you're in that first, second year. Try to build some friend groups. That's my main recommendations, because the key recommendations about how to deal with situations come from your peers, not really from your instructors, because they're in different positions, they experience life differently at that point, but your peers experience it in a very similar way you do. So I would really enforce and emphasize that, because as a transfer student, I don't really have that peer group. So it's really hard to blend in and try to push myself into already formed groups of friends and things like that. So I'd really emphasize that. And UNC Charlotte has a great way of joining lots and lots of community groups by interests, by culture. UNC Charlotte does a really great job with that. And that's part of the reasons why I would do it again, because of that sense of community and sort of like home feeling. Because I worked multidisciplinary program with 4 different departments, and everywhere was welcomed at home. I was able to knock at every professor's door, and I was never rejected. I was always trying to be people direct me to the right person. If they weren't the ones, I've never been shut down or ignored in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I would say I would definitely come back if I need to. I am thinking about MBA, maybe, like I don't have enough degrees already. So I have I'm a certified translator, which I also got at UNC Charlotte. So I just keep collecting degrees at this point. So why not? What's another one?
Okay, another question from our students.
How did you build a network? Were there any programs at UNC Charlotte specifically that helped you make connections and find job opportunities?
I can start with that one. So during my time in Charlotte, I got involved with College Democrats, which was really transformational and helpful for me. I was able to meet a bunch of folks locally and also nationally. And when I graduated in 06, I had the opportunity to move to DC and do a second round internship with the DNC in their communications department. And a lot of the relationships that I had built during my College Democrats days, I was able to rely on as sort of entry points and foundational, just people to know, people to grab coffees with, people to ask different questions about how to, build a career, in government and politics. And a lot of that was all traced back to, to my time in UNC Charlotte and particularly that campus group. I also was involved in campus activities board as well. And found that to be tremendously helpful again, just in having a network that you can rely on in terms of, well, how do you do this or how do you do that? I think, looking back on sort of my college time as a student, college does a really amazing job to prepare you to get the job or prepare you for your career. But how to be successful in that career and how to maintain some longevity and work your way up the ladder, that's all new. and sort of we all start as freshmen again in the real world once you graduate. So having that network that Margaret just talked about is really important. I was able to do that through those two organizations.
I think my build on that is a little bit different than Margaret's recommendation. I learned through the liberal arts community to develop relationships with my professors. I would say half of my professors were working professionals in the Charlotte business community, and they all had different experience. And I learned early in my sophomore year to get to know them as people beyond my professors, to really understand their lives, what they did beyond the classroom. And that enriched my educational experience, but also enhanced the support group that I had within Charlotte that continues to serve me to this day. So I think that is quite unique, particularly through the liberal arts college at UNC Charlotte. And I think it's unique also to Charlotte as compared to the other city centers with the UNC university system throughout the state.
I think most of the support I got was kind of not direct support in helping to find a job or those kinds of things, but in a variety of experiences in writing. Even I was an English major. I started out as a chemistry major. That didn't go well. I hit organic chemistry and it hit back, so that ended. So I went into English, which was my second love. I really wanted to be a science fiction writer, and I thought I'd take the science and the English and the rest would come naturally, which I guess made me murderously angry, and I became a mystery writer instead. But what I found was that the writing is writing. And I worked at the student newspaper, which was then the Carolina Journal. I think it's the 49er now. I'm not sure. Gone through name changes. I worked as an intern at the Office of Public Information. Anything that was writing related that I could sconce onto, and that was, we were talking about the breadth of opportunities at UNCC. That was very much true. It didn't matter what your major was. You could scooch on to different things and learn different kinds of writing. And that writing on a deadline, at that time, even just learning how to compose at a keyboard as opposed to writing by hand, which none of y'all young folks ever had to do. But we old folks had to do that for a while. And all those kinds of skills that when I went job hunting, I had experience. And even though I didn't have networks per se, I could use my the people I worked for at the Public Information Office. They would provide references for me. And I had a portfolio to show, which was not something I would have had if I'd just been going with the English classes. I needed those for other things, but for job hunting, it was the outside activities that helped me.
Yeah, I think for me, sort of twofold. My fraternity was a real strong connection for me, not just for the social aspect, but we did a lot of community service events. And so being able to connect with folks in this actual community who needed, the help that we were trying to give them or did give them, we got to learn about the needs of Charlotte, the needs of certain communities in Charlotte. So you start to learn people and you start to learn your city and the direct needs from that point. And then the other aspect was I needed a job. So my job at UNCC, I worked in the media department, and working there was great. I got to learn to build set. I got to learn to work camera, to edit, to do all these things. But through that connection is how my network really started with television. Brad, who was the head over there, his wife worked at ESPN, and that helped me get my internship. So, and from there on, it just continued to build. So, it's like Chad would say, building relationships not with only your professors, but depending on if you're working on campus, see how far that gets you. See who knows who and what. So that age-old saying, it's not what you know, but who you know. That's very true a lot of the times. What you know is your skill set, but who you know is how you leverage all that. So.
One thing that I appreciated coming back again as a post-baccalaureate student, I was the student mix, and I'm not necessarily sure that this is unique to the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at UNC Charlotte, but it's just something that I appreciated as a student at UNC Charlotte. The very heterogeneous student mix, I was able to very quickly kind of settle into a larger group of non-traditional students, people who had maybe been in the military before coming to their undergraduate, people who had maybe started their own business out of high school and came back to university. And so I had a really rich experience because as a slightly older student, I was able to study with those folks and network with those folks. And then with the math department in particular, I became a grader for the math department. I became a tutor for the math department. And that relationship has actually persisted over the years since I've left. I'm now a member of the faculty of the math department. And so it's those relationships, to Chadwick's point, those relationships with the faculty can really be lasting. These are folks that are kind of cementing your interest in certain disciplines, and those are in some cases connections that can go for quite a long time.
Margaret, did you want to add anything, or should we go on to the next question?
Yeah, I'll add, but from a different standpoint. Some of the biggest things that happen during college is really finding yourself and trying to find that job that you want to be doing your whole life prospectively. I mean, not always that's the case, but that's roughly the goal, right? And I was at UNC Charlotte already coming from a career switch experience. So I did ballet professionally my whole life. And that was my ultimate destiny since I was 2 years old. I knew exactly who I was going to be. And then upon receiving an injury, I had to completely redefine everything that I had in my life and to kind of figure out everything on my own. And during my bachelor's degree, I had some great professors that tried to pull different strings and see what sticks a bit more. And I was recommended that maybe it's a good idea to go ahead and pursue graduate degree based on basically my ambitions and what I would like to be doing in the future. But in the graduate school is where it really went hardcore search for what am I going to be doing with myself. And without the guidance of your mentors and advisors, that journey is practically impossible because you have no idea. You just don't know what's out there. And kind of going back to Chadwick's point, where unless you ask people that has been through that life and ask them what that journey was like, what did they like about it, what they did not like about it, what was their daily life like, you don't really have a chance to really knowing what your journey could be. And that's where my PhD advisor really helped me a lot. I don't know, I'm pretty sure I've switched like 5 different job titles by the time I decided what I'm going to do, but he really tried to help me out through that journey. I started with, well, maybe I want to be just teaching at a bachelor's level or a graduate level, and we tried to find some opportunities for that. I decided to do some science outreach, and then he helped me try to do things for that as well. And I landed on entrepreneurship as well with his suggestion and help and guidance, and it seemed to stick, and I seemed to fall in love with it. And that's what I do now. I'm now what I call an accidental entrepreneur. I never really dreamed to become a next Elon Musk, but I just kind of, my life ended up going in that direction. I really appreciated that my mentor really stood with me along that journey and walked me through it every single time, even though we would say, oh, that's the wrong road, let's go back and make a turn to a different path. So I think that's a really important portion as well, is just that mentorship and the professors at UNC Charlotte, that they're willing to help you. If you put in your foot forward and ask for it and really try to push and put the effort to get it done, they will help you to get where you would want to be happy where you want to be. They won't lend you a job like it was told before. It's not like they're going to walk you into the room and get you hired, but they'll prepare you to be where you want to be.
All right, we'll take a next question.
What was the best or most influential thing that you did during your time at UNC Charlotte that prepared you for your current career?
Do I do just a 20-item list at this point? I think it was going to be like more like 100 at this point. Yeah. There are a lot of things from organizational, just the community organizations that I've been a part of that help me get that sense of leadership, but as well as working in team and achieving a common goal. To, like I said, I was able to do a lot of scientific outreach for children, and without UNC Charlotte support, that wouldn't have been possible at all. To do those kind of educational opportunities, to go through an entrepreneurial program that is part of UNC Charlotte called Enterprise. Obviously, I wouldn't have even known that that was a thing if it didn't exist on campus, really. To research opportunities, to working in collaborative teams within UNC Charlotte and outside of UNC Charlotte. I mean, I couldn't even dream about something like that. And it's just the opportunities, they are there. If you're willing to take advantage of them, there are tons of different opportunities and different experiences that you can take across campus or even outside of campus. I've traveled to other universities to do some of the experiments with the help of UNC Charlotte and really get my hands on what I need to get my hands on. And it just was outside of the scope of what we had already on hand. So if you have the drive, there are tons of tools to get it done. It may take a while to get it started or set it up, but there are lots of tools. And at this point, university is so well set up in that sense that there are lots of connections within the different departments and the outside of the school, that if you have a certain dream, there's probably a way to get it. So lots and lots of opportunities that really helped shape who I am today as I am today, as well as there's always some kind of public speaking opportunities or coaching on your resume, or really that professional development coaching that you can really get from the from that standpoint as well.
Can I ask for the question to be repeated again? I just want to make sure I understand, please.
What was the best or most influential thing that you did during your time at UNC Charlotte that prepared you for your current career?
Okay. Since I asked that question, I'll go ahead and answer that. Before I do, though, I think I have to just say I was an A student going into college, and I failed calculus or pre-calculus, and then took it again and got a D. And thank God, a College of Liberal Arts and Sciences embraced me and said, it's okay. So, and I appreciate, Grayson, that you came back and you are in math and you're still there. Thank you very much. I think the wonderful thing that I got is also, I went to school in Paris, and the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences got me to understand that there are classrooms here, but there are classrooms beyond that. And going to Paris changed my life. And there were a few instructors who actually were from France at the school that got me prepared to go as an 18-year-old who had never been on a plane before by myself, to arrive in a country that I had never spoken to a native language speaker. And so I think that experience prepared me to finish out my career or my time at UNC Charlotte, but also gave me so much more to do what I do, and gave me the permission, honestly, at 28 years old to leave the corporate world and start my own company. And here I am 25 years later, and I wouldn't have known that then, but the foundation that was there at UNC Charlotte gave me what I needed to do it.
I'm going to say there were a couple of classes, and I've been trying to think back, that really made a big difference for me as a mystery writer, as a writer in general. One was a couple of writers' workshop classes, which was the first time when I had sat down with other writers. We would, read each other's material. We would workshop it. It was great stuff. And I found that, it was good in that I got a lot of feedback. And it was also good that I learned that not everyone was going to like what I was doing. I wasn't going to like what everyone else was doing. That didn't mean we couldn't approach it with respect and an eye towards improving the work, which is always the most important thing for writing. As part of that, I worked with took a class that was also teaching kind of a cross genre thing. I was at the, what do they call it? The writing practicum class, where half the class was learning methods for helping other writers. And the other half of the time was working in the, gosh, what did they call it? Where people would come, the Writing Resource Center, where people would come in and ask for help with their papers. So I would learn editing techniques. I would learn how to give feedback. And all of this has had a huge part, but both giving and taking feedback, because when you're a writer, yes, it's a solitary occupation. You do it by yourself, but then you send it to your beta readers who tell you, no, this doesn't work and this does work. And you have to be ready to deal with that. Then you send it to your agent. Same thing. He says, no, this has got to go. Only he says it in a funny voice because my agent has a really funny voice. And then it goes straight from there to, an editor who's going to give you more feedback and things to change. And you're going to either need to stand your ground or you're going to need to say, yeah, you're right. Something like this needs to give. And that sense of that the work is not, whoop, you're done. The work is fluid. The work is aimed for an audience. The work is to be read. The work is to be enjoyed. And it's got to be improved as much as you can. Sometimes you have to say, no, that would be good if I were writing a horror novel, but this is a mystery novel. It has to be this way. And so you have to be able to explain yourself, but you also have to be very open. And I think those two classes really helped me in that. Also, when I was working at both at the Writers Resource Center and working as an editor, I was features editor at the Carolina Journal, learning how to edit, learning how to do writer. Some of the worst editing I ever did, and one of the biggest mistakes I made as an editor was right there off the start, so I could get that off my plate. And it's like, okay, I've done the absolute stupidest thing I could do as an editor. I've got nowhere to go but up. And since then, I kind of fell into editing anthologies in addition to writing my own books. I edited anthologies with Charlaine Harris, who wrote the books upon which the True Blood series was based, and 2 other mystery TV shows were based on her work. And we fell into editing, and that was a whole nother process. But I had some background because I had worked at the Journal and I already done the stupidest thing. So any editing I did from that point on was going to be an improvement. So it was kind of I think those were my biggest experiences. And honestly, even I know a lot of people talked about getting mentors and those kinds of opportunities and connections. And that's easier for some people than it is for others. It was not easy for me. I didn't make those kinds of connections. But what I did learn was who to ask, and I learned how to learn. I think that is the most valuable thing for liberal arts. It's not what you learn, it's how to learn, and how to learn to research and to think and to ask people. And those experiences have helped me if I'm writing a book about TV Westerns or whatever backgrounds I've used circus and carnivals and pirate ships. And I'll ask the experts, so I'll know where to go to look and to find the background I need to make it authentic. So all those things have fed into being a mystery writer, not directly. It's not like there was a mystery writing major, but it all goes into the pot.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to add, or should we get another question? Because we're moving along. Another question?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dick Beekman. I'm a junior double majoring in history and political science. My apologies for my tardiness today. My internet decided to go out about an hour ago, and I've been dealing with Spectrum ever since. And my question for you, besides if you know a better internet provider, is how did the experiences you had at UNC Charlotte, both in and out of the classroom, set you up for success in your current field?
I can start and definitely sympathize with you on internet problems. It seems to just be ubiquitous now with life, but no, I mean, I think one of the things that I had the privilege to work on while I was a student at UNC Charlotte, particularly sort of in the early 2000s, is we were really focused on building building a sense of community and building a sense of sort of campus pride and authorship. And I noticed that you have on a Niner Nation shirt, which is no accident, because in the 05, 06 timeframe, that was an initiative to have people vote on what the student body wanted to call themselves from an athletic standpoint, or what we wanted to call ourselves from a culture standpoint. And Niner Nation was what won. And so there were branded T-shirts, and there were cups, and there were hats, and all kinds of different tchotchkes and things. But that didn't just start from nowhere. That started from a couple of grassroots students who were really committed to the sports programs. and that build into other things. So now, as a communicator and a communicator that's had the privilege to work in government and politics, I look and draw upon that experience as recognizing that if you listen to what people are talking about at sort of the core, the grassroots level, your neighborhoods, your communities, that bubbles all the way up into what policies are decided at the state, local, state, and federal level. And being able to always keep an ear to the streets is incredibly important. And also recognizing that you have to build coalitions. It's not just about, I think my way is right and you think your way is right, but how do we have conversations around really critical, important issues that are going to truly spark change, not only in our lives, but hopefully the lives of generations to come. So for me, I think that was one of the most impactful experiences that I continue to draw on each and every day, and apply that knowledge to to being a communication professional, and whether that's staffing a member of Congress or a cabinet secretary, getting them ready to do a media interview, or if it's talking to a reporter myself, and being able to think quickly and on your feet about where the pushback's going to come. You're going to ask me this question, what do I want to say in response? That's something that I started learning when I was a student, and just continue to layer on year after year, and hopefully one day I'll be really good at it.
I still marvel at the fact when the conversation of UNC Charlotte goes around athletics, because I think Tony and I are the ones that were there when athletics were not a big part of UNC Charlotte. It always makes me pause when I hear that. I think for me, the diversity of classes that the college offers, when I think back to the classes that when I would look at class lists that were offered to me, particularly after I pivoted from sophomore to junior year, I had Victorian Lit, I had African American Studies, I had French, I had public relations and public speaking. And each one of those, that diversity really enriched my mind. It challenged my mind in different ways. But, when I reached graduation time, collectively, it really gave me such a strong understanding of communications, writing, public speaking, editing, and conversing with the business world. And I think that is something that I would encourage you when you're looking at your class list, and take things that challenge you, but also speak to you in a way that you wouldn't normally do. I think students choose, and we socialize students to do this in the university system, is to choose a very pragmatic way to get to become an accountant, or choose a particular way to become a business administrator. Now, especially through liberal arts and sciences, is the opportunity to really stretch your mind and give yourself an education that is different than somebody who is even in the same school that you are.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with that. When I was a student, I decided, since the core curriculum was pretty loose then, what your requirements were, so it was really kind of easy to make the requirements. And English wasn't the most, didn't require the most didn't require labs, and didn't require a lot of stuff. So that means there was a lot of room in my schedule for other things. And I took all kinds of things. I took an accounting class to see what it was like. I took psychology. I took stage makeup just because it was fun. I took Shakespeare and performance. I took I took calculus. I actually did well in calculus. I don't know what it meant, but I could do it. And I took all these different classes just because this was my one opportunity. And I took this as advice from my father. He was an engineering student at NC State. And engineering, requires so much math and so much physics and so much everything. There was never any time for anything like electives. And he said, don't do that. Don't go to be trained, go to be educated. And that's what you get at the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. You're not getting trained, you're getting educated.
I want to piggyback back on what Tony said on the previous one, is that you're really learning how to learn and how to adapt throughout your journey. And I think that is the biggest thing that helped me to be a startup founder CEO at the moment. Yeah, I'm a technical background person, yet I have to learn bazillion other things and how to do them right now in my position. And it is tough. I think it's much harder to learn what kind of learner you are yourself than just learn a topic or subject. There is actually one person on this call that has been my student in the lab before, and I'm sure she had nice angry moments at me and frustrations when I asked her to do this or that, and she would be like, I don't get why you're telling me to do this. It's tough. It's really hard. Learning is a very hard process, and understanding what kind of learner you are is a very tough process because we're not all the same. Somebody will just read it once and they're good to go. And some others, that's never going to help. They're going to read it once and forget it. And if they're going to read it 100 times, they're going to forget it. So that's definitely the process that you learn through not just taking the classes, but also diversifying your background has been mentioned before. Don't take one type of everything. I failed macroeconomics 3 times. I'm a startup CEO right now. Who cares, you know? So you just try to figure out and you try to diversify yourself. There is room for failure. It's not like you're going to die if you fail a course. That's not a big deal. You can recover. You can take other things. You can substitute your grades. There are other ways to take care of it. So try it, take a shot. And then maybe like Tony said, you will find yourself being great at calculus, or like someone else said, you might be failing in math completely. That's not a big deal. You just say, that's not for me. I'm going to move on somewhere else. And the more diverse that background is, even though it seems random and unnecessary at the moment, as you probably heard a trend here, the more diverse that scope was, the easier it was later on in life to change and adapt and scope. And we see a great range of people from the 80s and people from who graduated just recently. And life has changed so much in all that time. And our map has changed in that time, even of what the countries are at this point anymore. And only having that ability to adapt and mold to living in a new modern world comes only from that constant learning, constant challenging yourself and going outside of what you would typically do and doing some other things. And that was the greatest thing that UNC Charlotte provides, is that broad scope of diversities of how to become a better human, first of all.
I think, Dick, you said, I think if I remember correctly, you said you are a history and political science student. And I think what I would say is specific to a history and political science student is just don't too narrowly imagine what you can do with a history and political science education. I remember I had like Chadwick, I had a seminal experience with study abroad, living overseas. And before I did that, I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for a little while. And this is after having just graduated with a history degree. And I remember having my eyes, this was 22-year-old Grayson who didn't know anything. I remember getting to DC and having my head almost exploded because I realized there's an entire community of professional historians in Washington, DC doing all sorts of wildly interesting things. I ended up working in the Office of Public Affairs at the State Department with a group in the Office of the Historian. Wildly interesting people. And so the point there is, I remember before I even went to DC, I remember thinking, well, my options as a history student, I can go to law school, I can get a PhD in history, and that's about it. And that was such an unnecessary constraint that was just my own lack of imagination. So I think what I would encourage you to do is, and I think Chadwick echoed this with this notion of just kind of very pragmatically thinking about how your education, terminates in some sort of, path, career path. I think what I would say is just, be imaginative about it. You'd be surprised what historians or what students of history have gone on to do.
Yeah, embrace the failure. I think that's another thing that we've all kind of like said is you have to be willing to fail or go through something. It just makes you stronger. You got to destroy to create. And if you're willing to go through some destruction to create on the back end, it truly does make you stronger. And I think that's been like a common thread for all of us. Although I don't think any of us would like sign up to fail a class, but it's going to be part of the process. And you're going to fail, like whether whatever you do outside of school, like you're going to fail at some point. It's not the end of the world. It's just sort of an opportunity to reset.
yeah, and for me, it was just, and I'm looking at everybody. I think you have to be. I'm going to echo probably what everybody says, but open to your own journey. Like, don't be afraid to say yes to the weird stuff. Don't think that convention is for you. Just because you hear someone did this, that's the thing that you have to do. Your journey is your own, your path is your own, and you've got to be wide open and ready to accept that and then walk in that. You know, like Grayson said, for a history person, that's going to be wildly different every time. You might end up being on some Indiana Jones type shit. You don't know. And then, of course, like Margaret said, diversify all of it. You know, just make sure that you stay open to what the journey is about to offer you, and don't box yourself in. When you do that, you have no idea where you're going to end up, and you just gotta just be ready for it all.
So we're now in our final 15 minutes, and I would just like to end with asking you guys for any final words of advice. And before that, I would also like to end by thanking Margaret for making me a very disciplined college student early on, and also making me realize that nursing was not for me.
I didn't force her out of the major. She was my top student.
I'll jump in. Go ahead, Chadwick. So I'm glad we were asked this question because during my run this morning, I was thinking about this. To young people or people who are in still studying at UNC Charlotte, one thing that I think is absolutely paramount, especially coming out of the pandemic, is to invest in relationships and go beyond conversing with people with a DM on Instagram or an email. Pick up the phone, write a handwritten note, get to know people, and that will serve you far beyond where everybody else goes. I think the frustration that I have as an employer with younger people is that they send an email and they think their work is done. And there is no invitation whatsoever or encouragement from anybody else to respond back to you and to develop something that is beyond a transaction. So I think in a world that has celebrated transaction for such a long time, we need to pivot and we need to invest in relationships and grow our networks. And that is how businesses thrive. That's how we are going to get through this pandemic. Is how we are going to feed each other far beyond and enrich the world. And I am so passionate about that. And I will say that again and again and again, but to young people, that is my number one thing in advice.
I want to add right on top of that note, for people that aren't very social, I'm one of those. Have been one that would always just hide in the corner in the very back desk and just pretend I'm just non-existent until I just stopped doing that because it was pointless. But even from this call, you might have noticed that we didn't really know each other joining the call. And we noticed there's so many similarities among all of us that we were like, oh, we studied the same thing, or, oh, we're from the similar background, or we might be doing the similar things. And that's what you need to remember in the back of your mind when you're reaching out to those new people or your new potential employer, is the fact that there are humans too. And they can relate to things as well as you are. So don't be afraid to reach out, and maybe don't be so stiff in a conversation. Maybe ask them for their favorite coffee or something. Just something common ground is always helpful in the conversations beyond just, well, you do this task and that's the end of the conversation. So yeah, just to add on to that point that was made about networks is the fact that we're all humans. Be respectful, respect their opinions. Don't force what you think is the right thing to do. Ask what their opinion is. Just have it a natural conversation. Remember that we all make mistakes. We'll all approach things differently, and that's totally normal. But if you don't make that step, you just will never go anywhere because you never even tried in the first place. So failure is okay. Be nice to people. They're people too. That's my main focus point.
going to borrow some advice that I actually heard when I took my daughter, my younger daughter. She's going to school at Oberlin now, which is another liberal arts bastion. And one of the professors who had this amazingly dry delivery, and I cannot reproduce it, so I apologize. But he said that while you're at Oberlin, or in y'all's case, for people who are still at UNCC, or pretty much anywhere you go, you are going to meet people who can change your lives. And you're going to meet people who you never get around to them, so they're not going to change your life. And you're going to try to optimize your time by making the most connections, by being the most clubs, by taking the most classes, by doing everything. You're going to try to optimize your time. And he said, optimization is for chumps. And he's right, because you're not going to be able to do it all. Pick and choose, pick the things that you enjoy. If you're an introvert, do your stuff by social media. If you're an extrovert, go out and join club. If you're an athlete, or, go out and join the teams. Find where you fit. And don't worry that you're not going to be able to do it all, because you're not going to be able to do it all. The smallest college in the world, you would not be able to take advantage of everything there is. At UNCC, I went to a lot of the different plays. I could never go to all the different plays and performances there were. There just wasn't enough time. I was in several clubs. I couldn't do them all. Find the ones you're comfortable with. If you're not enjoying it, jettison, do something else, because you're not going to be able to do everything. Just if you find yourself wearing yourself out trying to take advantage of all the opportunities, you will kill yourself. And killing people is my job, not yours.
I've got two quick pieces of advice, which I think will summarize a couple different pieces here. One, the common theme between the last three comments is just being intentional about what it is that you want to do. And intention is a matter of focusing on what your ultimate goal you want that to be, and being willing to be flexible and being willing to fail. But being intentional with that in mind, I think, is really important and something to keep in mind. The second thing, which is my general advice for anyone in college, new to their careers, be patient. The career field, your life, sort of that 22 to 65 when the retirement age is, that's a really, really, really long period of time, and your life and your world and your person is going to go through a lot of growth and a lot of change during that process. So embrace that it's going to be a journey, and be willing to accept that journey. I like to give this little sort of mathematical calculation. Every 4 years in the real world, postgraduate, whether that's grad school or whether that is bachelor's degree, undergrad, equate 4 years to 1 year of college. So right now I'm like a second semester sophomore in the real world, and there are folks who are juniors and seniors who have far more experience than me, and I'm still climbing the ladder to get to where they are. So be patient and allow yourself to travel on that journey.
Yeah, I think you're taking some advice from Cameron on that. Be patient. I would also say, be a community change agent wherever you're living, wherever you are, wherever you end up. Find out what that community needs and how your field or your knowledge or your experience can apply to that. Doesn't mean that you have to make a ton of money doing it. Doesn't mean you have to make any money. Just how are you going to be impactful to where you live? Because, like Chadwick said, we all have to feed each other. And the only way to do that is to be of service. So how can you be of service in what you do? And I would also say, be prepared to shift perspective or be open to perspectives. Being able to look at everyone's walk of life and how you can help or apply it to your own makes you just a better and decent human being. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to be, a decent human being, for where you live and for who you serve. And don't be afraid to collaborate with someone who's smarter than you or has a bigger idea. Those things help you grow as well. It's consistent learning. Like Cameron said, you take your 4 years and now you're a freshman, you take another 4 year sophomore, but in all that time, you're still consistently learning. And like Margaret said, figure out how you learn and what you learn, wherever you end up. And then one day you'll be back right here at an alumni talk. Maybe it'll be in person. But either way, you come back and you bring that knowledge that you've learned in the real world with your degree, but with just your human experience. And then you apply it and you pass it on. And then you're just making sure that the next person is a decent human being like you, and then so on and so on.
I'm not sure I can say it any better than my peers, but progress isn't always comfortable. Sometimes you have to be vulnerable. Sometimes you have to do things that make you uncomfortable. Sometimes you barely get through that chemistry 101 class and think, oh my God, there's no way I can possibly do chemistry 102, but something pops in chemistry 102. And the next thing you know, you're a chemistry major. But that takes a little tenacity, and it takes a little willingness to recognize that sometimes progress is uncomfortable.
I just want to say that if something pops for you in chemistry, you may not have done the lab properly.
Had to clean up a lot of broken glass, so it's okay. That's what your fees are for. Just don't throw it at somebody next to you, please. I'll tell the on top of Grayson for just a little addition as example of I guess the failure and so forth, since I am the chemist in the room is my usual joke for people. Don't worry, I get that all the time. Any room I enter, I always get turned to as like, and the chemist in the room. And I'm like, I'm no longer even doing chemistry, but anyway. On my first year of grad school, in my head, I thought I was doing terrible. To me, the world was just horrible. I thought I was failing miserably. I thought I can't do this. I'm not the right fit for it, which everybody is like, well, if you're here, you obviously are. But to my brain, that just wasn't hitting. And I kid you not, I spent an hour in the chair of our department just crying in her office and just telling me just I want to get out, get me out of here. I want to drop out. I can't do this anymore. And she was just so persistent to explain to me that challenges are normal. You will struggle. This is new for you. There's nothing wrong with freaking out and feeling uncomfortable. It's normal process. And just remember that it's a lot worse in your head than it is in reality. So if it helps you just go cry to somebody and explain what you're feeling, that might be the best decision, because it may not be the reality. It's just you feel like it's the worst day of your life, but it really may not be. And it's just you're learning, you're on a learning curve. Maybe you're just on a really sharp climb right now, and then you'll reach the plateau and things will be fine again. So that's something I wanted to share, that we're not all here, oh, the ride was easy, we were just all A students and everything was great. Not really. The reality is it's just not realistic to have such expectation for yourself. You'll be a bumpy road, but you'll get over it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all. First of all, thank you all for the responses. This has been an absolute pleasure having everyone here on the call. First of all, just want to thank everyone, thank Cameron, Chadwick, Tony, Margaret, Blues, and Grayson for being here. And also want to thank Dick, Alana, and Nudes as well for being our student moderators today. I know I really enjoyed it. I was writing down some of the advice I think I know I'll take with me into my professional career and that sort of thing as well. But again, before we let you go, we wanted to make sure to remind you as well, it's an exciting day, and excited to have everyone here for the panel. And part of this is in celebration of Niner Nation Gives. So we are right in the middle of our 49-hour fundraising drive for UNC Charlotte. And this is a part of our spotlight hour for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So we really appreciate you being a part of it. I know something Judy and I always talk about is you as alumni sharing your time, talent, treasures. And I know all three of you are very generous in all three of those. So thank you so much for your time and talents today, and your treasures as well. And for those of you on the call who haven't made a contribution yet, please go to ninernationgives.uncc.edu. Not only to make a contribution, but we have a lot of other exciting things going on. You can see how your fellow 49ers are celebrating, wearing their green and gold, posting some things using the hashtag and then also making their contributions as well. But again, thank you all so much for being here. It really has been a pleasure. And before we go, I'm going to turn it over to Dick to wrap it up for us and take it away. So Dick, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you all again for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and talk to us. I know that it was really informative and really valuable, and we appreciate your time, we appreciate your insight, and we appreciate your continued commitment to UNC Charlotte. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you for your time, and go Niners.
Go Niners.
Thanks, Dick.
Thanks,
Nice to meet you
everybody.
all. Have a good day.
See you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.